Welcome. Sit down and we'll get started in a moment. Today, we will be covering Santa Anna Cortez, the Corona-Del-Rey sector, and their break from the Avalon Republic. This is going to be a long module, so we'll have to split it into multiple parts. Today, we'll be going over the rise of Santa Anna Cortez, Part 1. Santa Anna Cortez, born 2576, was a daughter of Antonio and Paula Cortez. The Cortez family had a long history in the Corona-Del-Rey sector. They had been some of the first settlers to colonize the region in the 2530s. From 2554 to 2610, members of the Cortez family held positions of prominence in the sector. In the case of Antonio Cortez, he became the governor of Junta del Rey in 2591. Anna was a gifted and fiery child growing up. She excelled academically and was an accomplished athlete. She took an officer's commission in the Avalon Navy despite her father and mother advising her that the Navy was probably not for her. The Avalon Navy's policy then and now does not allow women in combat roles, meaning Anna's typical ambition would likely get capped. Despite this, Anna's 8 years of service was exemplary, the height of which was becoming the executive officer of the medical ship ASV Nightingale. However, with her only path of advancement in the Navy being the Auxiliary Corps, Anna left at the end of her 8-year commission. She returned home and joined her father in politics. Many assumed she would run for governor of Junta del Rey. Her father was well-liked and her public reputation was positive. But in 2610, events took place that no one expected and even now are subject of much debate. Before the third-generation jump drives were developed in 2649, a single system-to-system jump took weeks, and it would take 2 or 3 months to get to the frontier systems. It was inevitable that small independence movements would take root. The exact date is unknown, but we do know that Anna became a member of the Corona-Del-Rey Independence Front in either 2604 or 2605. While the organization was public, her involvement with the group was kept secret due to her position as her father's political advisor. Though little is known about the group's inner workings during that time, Anna's leadership abilities and charisma allowed her to become the CDIF leader, supplanting its founder, David Anderson. CDIF members interviewed years later said she had a way of speaking that was captivating. When she spoke, you felt like you could overcome any obstacle, one CDIF member stated. It's clear from surviving records that up until Anna joined the CDIF, proper organization and structure had been lacking. Anderson was said to be good at getting people to think about and discuss issues, but was not a compelling leader. This is easily demonstrated by the fact that after Anderson was replaced, Anna coached and elevated members who were promising orators and up-and-coming social media stars. Membership in the CDIF then rose from 7,000 or 8,000 to over 30,000, a not unnoticeable percentage of Junta del Rey's 2+ million population. Santa Anna Cortez kept her involvement with the CDIF secret from her family, and only the core of the CDIF knew of her full involvement. Her mother said years later that she had thought Anna was seeing someone she was afraid her family might not approve of, and had attributed that to her aloof behavior at the time. Despite CDIF efforts to gain political traction for their movement, there seemed to be little interest among the wider populace of the Corona-Del-Rey sector. We have some writings by Anna, and in them we see her starting down the road that would lead to her fame and infamy. My father and the people of the sector have no vision. Their comfort here and now is all they can conceive. They do not have the ambition to build a lasting grand legacy, she wrote sometime in 2606. Anna came to the conclusion that the common people did not know what was best for them, and it was up to the elite to take charge and lead the masses. Later she would write that the masses desire strong leadership, and it is the duty of the elite, know their moral obligation to provide that leadership. These sentiments were able to spread throughout the CDIF, and by 2610 the stage was set. The main Avalon fleet dock at the time was part of the Punta-del-Rey Prime orbital station. 3 bursts of the station's 12 docks were reserved for the 3 frigates assigned to the sector. On May 2, 2610, the ASV Palmades and the ASV Lionel were in dock, while the ASV Aggervain was on patrol in the system. Heavily armed CDIF members stormed the docks. 2 Marines had been assigned to the ships as guards that day. The rest of the Marine force was doing their daily PT in the barracks. The Marine guards were dispatched in seconds. The ship's crews, who were in the process of reprovisioning the ships, were killed or captured within 5 minutes. Meanwhile, the Marine barracks was vented to space. The fact that Captain Sadler was keeping to regulations and had the Aggervain on overwatch while the other 2 frigates were docked is surprising. But with that said, the poor state of security was not surprising. There had never been a security incident in the station, ever, other than drunk Marines and sailors, and there hadn't been any active pirates in the sector for over 5 years. The Punta-del-Rey station was locked down and calm silence initiated. The station administrator, Diego Alexander, was a member of the CDIF and had been secretly filling station personnel positions with CDIF members. The CDIF assault force dealt with anyone that was not a co-conspirator and ensured all ships docked at the station were locked down. Santa Anna Cortez made the Palmades her flagship and got the 2 frigates launched as quickly as possible, and moved to intercept ASV Aggervain. Aggervain, however, spotted Cortez's new fleet leaving dock. Captain Sadler tried to hail them to find out why they had gotten underway ahead of schedule, but when he got no response, Sadler got concerned. His concern went to alarm when his sensor officer reported seeing the bodies from the Marine barracks drifting away from the station. When Palmades and Lionel moved on an intercept course, Sadler knew something was wrong and set course to leave Punta-del-Rey Prime's gravity well. Despite this change in heading, Cortez had a 2-minute window where her ships would be able to fire their missiles and have a chance to hit the Aggervain. When that window opened, she had her ships fire half of their missiles, 32 missiles total between the 2 ships. It was a long shot, but Cortez had to take it. If Aggervain got away, she'd have about 3, maybe 4 months before Avalon could respond. Sadler might have let security lapse, but he wasn't an incompetent captain. He knew the capabilities of his ship and missiles. Aggervain's ECM was active, but Sadler didn't put much faith in it. The Avalon Navy's missiles had thermal and optical backup sensors and databases for all known ships. They would know the right place to hit them. Sadler held course till the missiles used up the first stage and went into their mid-course phase. He ordered course adjustments at random times to force the missiles to correct their trajectories and expend their limited RCS fuel. Cortez was not ignorant about ship combat and had set her missiles on a wide attack pattern, knowing that most would not hit, but they would limit Aggervain's maneuverability options. All she needed was 1 or 2 hits. That's all it took in most cases to slow or cripple a ship of Aggervain's tonnage. Halfway through the mid-course phase, Aggervain's rail cannons began sniping at the missiles with flak rounds. 2 minutes before the terminal phase, the point defense lasers opened up. As they went into their terminal phase, it was clear that only 5 missiles would have a chance to intercept. As the seconds ticked down, 1 was taken out by flak, 2 more by lasers. At the last second, Aggervain popped countermeasures and went to flank speed, allowing her to evade the last 2 missiles. Aggervain jumped as soon as she left the Punta-del-Rey Prime gravity well. Cortez's ships followed, but barring a miracle, Aggervain would reach the system's jump point for Corona-Del-Rey before she could catch her. At best speed, it would take 7 weeks for Aggervain to reach the Avalon system. Cortez had hoped to have more time to prepare before Avalon found out what had happened, but there was nothing she could do about it now. There has been some criticism of Captain Sadler for not returning fire, but that tends to be from historians with little understanding of space combat. With Cortez's ships being behind ASV Agravain, if Sadler had fired his missiles, they would have had to overcome the velocity of the Agravain, thus shortening their effective engagement range. In that scenario, the chance of scoring a hit, even if Sadler had emptied his missile cells, would have been zero. With all space-based opposition removed, the only possible military opposition was the Fuente-del-Rey Army and Air Force Reserves. These forces consisted of 1 battalion each, both under strength due to lack of enlistment interest. However, CDIF fighters had stormed the joint force base during the battle in orbit and secured it with little opposition. It helped that 90% of the reservists were at home. With all opposition removed, Santa Anna Cortez broadcast to the whole star system her intentions. She proclaimed the Fuente-del-Rey system and the Corona-Del-Rey sector as a whole free from Avalon Republic's rule, and declared herself queen of the new Corona-Del-Rey kingdom. People were understandably confused about what had just happened, not least of which was Anna's own father. Anna removed her father as governor of the Fuente-del-Rey system and appointed him governor of Fuente-del-Rey Prime, and appointed the now General Alexander, the former administrator of the Fuente-del-Rey orbital station, as the system's military governor. When she finally granted her father an audience to explain what she had done and what she expected of him, Antonio Cortez was understandably having a rough time and was described by those near him as being distraught. Despite his objections to what his daughter had done, Anna convinced her father to accept his role as planetary governor. She argued that his presence would be a familiar and stabilizing presence, mitigating unrest, and thereby preventing unnecessary harm. If Antonio Cortez could be described as having a weak spot, it was for the people of Fuente-del-Rey. Their safety and prosperity had been his life's work for the past 19 years. He knew if his daughter had to drop someone else into the role, they would not have the knowledge necessary to keep things running smoothly. Anna's decision did have the effect she desired, mostly. While the majority of the people were so baffled by what had happened they were paralyzed with indecision and went about their day-to-day life as default, there were some that didn't accept the change, and the new Corona-Del-Rey Royal Security Forces were kept busy dealing with protesters and resistance fighters. But these dissidents had no organization and were silenced within weeks. Anna also gained support from a quarter no one had expected, but that records show afterwards was completely expected by her. The Archbishop of Fuente-del-Rey came out in support of Santa Anna Cortez, declaring, "The sin of democracy has been humanity's greatest rebellion against God and his ordained order. Today God has blessed his child Santa Anna Cortez and given her a great victory, allowing her to restore proper order to this world." This had mixed effects. Fuente-del-Rey Prime is and was roughly 50% Catholic, which is unusual in Avalon-controlled space as it is culturally Protestant. The Catholics were more receptive to this message than the Protestants and atheists were. However, it did start massive theological debates in both Catholic and Protestant circles, which was fine as far as Anna was concerned. "Let them have their debates and arguments about the divine will," she wrote at the time. "It is the limit of their mental capabilities. I will meanwhile care for what they cannot comprehend." Anna let her chief security deal with those matters. Queen Santa Anna Cortez knew she had limited time to organize her new kingdom's economy before the end of trade with the core systems would start to be felt. To try and counter this, Anna moved quickly to lift regulations on things like AI, cybernetics, and androids. She slashed taxes across the board as a distraction tactic and promised trade protections, despite knowing re-establishing trade with Avalon in the near future was out of the question, and all trade routes to the other human factions were blocked. But she needed time, and those hollow promises would buy her that. Anna also had to see to her kingdom's defense. With only 2 frigates, she didn't have enough ships to extend her authority to the rest of the Corona-Del-Rey sector, let alone defend the Fuente-del-Rey system. So she had the cargo haulers Light Runner, Diamond, and Unicorn commandeered to be converted to expedient combat ships. Using spare point defense lasers and rail cannons from the Avalon Navy's stockpile, the three ships could be given teeth. That was, of course, at the expense of using the spares the Navy had purposely stored for the two frigates she had commandeered. Work was also being done to convert detachable cargo pods into makeshift missiles to give them a bit more reach and flexibility. With those things set in motion, Anna left her lieutenants to oversee things in the Punta-del-Rey system and took her two frigates to secure the Gloria-del-Rey system, jumping out May 21st. Her fleet arrived in the Gloria-del-Rey system June 1st. Today, the Gloria-del-Rey system is mostly known for its fuel processing facilities in orbit of the gas giant Gloria-del-Rey 2. In 2610, those facilities were still being constructed, and the few outposts in the system focused on mining. Anna was disappointed to see there was very little traffic in system. Her ships could only detect 5 cargo haulers, all on outbound trajectories, and she could only hope to intercept one. Regardless, one ship was better than none, so she set out to intercept it. 5 hours later, HMS Palmades had docked to the hauler Rust-Oleum, while HMS Lionel provided overwatch. Anna had a prize crew put aboard, then continued on to Jackson's Hole, a small mining colony on a planetoid located in the system's inner asteroid belt. And the first time in this saga, not everything went Anna's way. Jackson's Hole was, at the time, the largest mining colony/outpost in the system, population about 5,000. The CDIF had put agents there a year prior, and she hoped they had been successful in sowing independent sentiments. Upon her arrival, Anna announced herself with her new title and informed the outpost they were now under her rule. The outpost governor, Edgar Robinson, a former Avalon Marine, was not impressed. He refused to surrender the outpost's magazine of Navy munitions. Anna threatened to fire on the outpost. He responded, "Lady, you can try, and I'm sure it'll make less noise than the meteoroid impacts." The outpost's main facilities were a mile under the surface of the planetoid to protect from radiation and meteoroid impacts. Edgar Robinson had called Anna's bluff. Her ships didn't have anything that could crack that rock. She could shoot up the facilities on the surface, but all that would do would paint her as the villain, and Avalon would look like the heroes when they returned. So Anna did the only thing she could do and departed. Not getting the munitions was a blow, and more so than she probably realized. Looking back at old manifests from the time show that there were 320 SGM-56 missiles, 5,000 rounds of Mark 76 EKCVT, and 10,000 rounds of Mark 66 SAP CVD. The remaining supply of missiles at Punta-del-Rey after rearming her ships was 32. Anna would have likely not expected to find that much ordnance there. Most of it had been left over from the last time Avalon had had to hunt pirates in the region, and then apparently forgot about it, as that was more than was typically kept in frontier ammo caches. Anna took her fleet to the Corona-Del-Rey system, the system the sector was named for, and the one system all the others had connecting jump lanes to. Anna's fleet arrived in Corona-Del-Rey on the 16th of June. Word had spread from Punta-del-Rey about what had happened, and the results were messy. There were 12 mining colonies located on asteroids, planetoids, and moons, all supporting construction of the Corona-Del-Rey Deep Space Trading Hub. This trading hub was, at the time, being constructed by Wilson and Smith Incorporated, but is now owned by Void Jumpers Incorporated. Work on the station had stopped. 2 of the mining colonies were having internal conflicts of leadership, 6 had declared for the Kingdom of Corona-Del-Rey, and 4 had remained loyal to Avalon. There were no Navy ships in system, but evidenced by the debris fields, fighting had taken place. Ships were heading back and forth across the system in an attempt by both sides to create a scratch fleet. It was clear that CDIF agents had been more successful in Corona-Del-Rey than they had been in Gloria-Del-Rey. The first news of what had happened in Fuente del Rey finally reached Corona-Del-Rey June 9th. There was a lot of confusion at first, but CDIF had been working in the system for nearly 2 years. Wilson and Smith Incorporated, the largest employer in the system, was not well liked, and oversight from Avalon was non-existent, leading to predatory employment practices. This in turn led to the workers in the Wilson and Smith mining colonies being easily convinced to join the independence movement. The 4 mining colonies that remained loyal were not Wilson and Smith facilities, but Wolfhelm Incorporated mining colonies. They were better liked than Wilson and Smith, as they had more employee-friendly policies and had a propensity for hiring veterans. In the 2600s, Wolfhelm was more known for their mining and fabrication operations, whereas today they are better known for their production of ship armor. Over the next week, small skirmishes took place between loyalists and rebels. Industrial lasers and construction drones got repurposed as ship weapons as the two sides scrambled to salvage whatever they could to give them an edge. Okay, that's all for today. Next time, we'll look at the Battle of Corona-Del-Rey and the Rise of Santa Anna Cortez Part 2.